The orbital training facility gleamed against the void, a monument to the Krellin Empire's thousand-year dominance. Inside its sterile corridors, Mary watched through reinforced glass as another cub received its brand. The young Krellin's fur stood on end as the thermal marker descended. It had miscalculated a gravity equation, a minor error, but errors were not tolerated. The brand seared into its shoulder, a permanent reminder of failure. The cub didn't cry out. It had learned that lesson during its first branding. "Barbaric," Mary whispered, her human sensibilities revolting against the scene. Commander Thexkar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Your species is soft, human Mary. The Krellins have conquered 47 systems using this method." "Pain is the most efficient teacher." "Efficient?" Mary turned from the window, her dark eyes meeting the commander's multifaceted gaze. "Your efficient method produces soldiers who are terrified of innovation. They follow orders perfectly but can't adapt when situations change. Adaptation is unnecessary when protocols are absolute." Mary had heard this argument before. She'd been assigned to this station as an educational consultant, Earth's attempt at cultural exchange with the galactic powers. 3 months ago, she'd believed she could make a difference. Now, watching another cub branded, she wondered if she'd wasted her time. "Commander, you brought me here to improve training outcomes. Give me one class, one group of cubs. Let me show you a different way." Thexkar's antennae twitched. "The Krellin method has served us for 1,000 years. I know." Mary stepped closer. "But you're losing battles to smaller forces. The Virani Collective defeated your fleet at Proxima despite being outnumbered 3-1. Why? Because they can think creatively under pressure." The commander was silent for a long moment. Finally, "You may have Class Theta 9, but when your methods fail, you will witness their brandings yourself." Class Theta 9 consisted of 12 cubs, ages equivalent to human teenagers. They filed into the training room with the rigid precision of soldiers, their shoulders already marked with various brands. Mary counted at least 4 on the smallest cub, a female named Chrysul. "Sit," Mary said, gesturing to the floor cushions she'd arranged in a circle. The cubs exchanged confused glances but obeyed, their movements mechanical. "I'm Mary. I'm a human, and I'm going to teach you differently than you've been taught before." She sat down with them, cross-legged. "First rule, in this room, there are no brandings." A ripple of shock passed through the group. One of the larger cubs, Corvan, spoke. "Then how will we learn from our mistakes?" "By making them," Mary replied, "and then figuring out why they happened and how to do better." She pulled out a complex puzzle device, a human invention called a Rubik's Cube, modified with 12 sides instead of 6. "This is a pattern-solving tool. I want each of you to try solving it. You'll probably fail. That's okay." Chrysul tentatively took the cube. Her clawed fingers fumbled with the mechanism. Within seconds, she'd scrambled it hopelessly. She froze, eyes wide with fear, waiting for pain. "Good start," Mary said gently. "Now tell me, what did you notice when you turned those sections?" I noticed that each rotation affects 3 layers simultaneously." "Excellent observation. Try again." The cub's ears perked up, a sign of surprise in Krellin physiology. Corey arrived at the station 2 weeks later. He was a cognitive neuroscientist from Earth, specializing in learning theory. Mary had requested his consultation when she realized the depth of conditioning she was working against. "They've literally been taught that their brains shut down under threat," Corey explained, reviewing the neural scans Mary had collected. "Look at this. The moment they anticipate failure, their prefrontal cortex activity drops by 60%. They go into pure survival mode." "Can we reverse it?" Corey ran a hand through his dark hair. "Maybe, But we need to rewire their association between mistakes and outcomes. Every time they fail without punishment, we're building new neural pathways. He joined Mary's classes, introducing games and simulations. The cubs learned celestial navigation through a VR program where crashes resulted in humorous animations rather than pain. They studied tactics through scenarios where failure meant starting over with new information. Slowly, something remarkable happened. Kreisel began asking questions, something unthinkable in traditional Krellin education. What if we approach the target from the asteroid field instead of open space? She proposed during a tactical simulation. Why would we do that? Korvan challenged, but there was curiosity in his voice, not hostility. It's against protocol, another cub warned. Mary smiled. There's no protocol here. Only problems and solutions. Try it, Kreisel. The approach worked. The simulation enemy, unable to track them through the debris field, was defeated with minimal casualties. In traditional training, would you have tried that? Corey asked. Kreisel's tail drooped. No, I would have been branded for deviating from established tactics. And your fleet would have lost that engagement, Mary said quietly. Innovation requires the freedom to fail safely. Commander Thexkar observed the final examination with undisguised skepticism. Class Theta 9 faced a simulation that had never been solved, a multivariable crisis requiring rapid adaptation and creative problem-solving. The cubs struggled. They made mistakes, dozens of them. But instead of freezing in fear, they analyzed, adapted, and tried new approaches. They communicated with each other, building on failures rather than retreating from them. 47 minutes into the simulation, they found a solution. Not the correct solution from the database because there wasn't one. They created something new. The commander's mandibles clicked rapidly, agitation or perhaps reluctant admiration. They solved in 47 minutes what took our best cadets 6 hours, Thexkar admitted. And their approach, it was unprecedented. Because they weren't afraid to make unprecedented mistakes, Mary replied. Corey added, human military history is full of examples where the side willing to learn from failure eventually defeats the side that punishes it. We call it adaptive learning. You call it inefficient. We call it survival. 6 months later, Class Theta 9 graduated with the highest tactical scores in station history. None had received a single brand during their training with Mary and Corey. More significantly, the Krellin High Command authorized a pilot program. 10 more classes would be trained using human methods. As Mary prepared to leave the station, Kreisel approached her with a small carved crystal, a Krellin gesture of deep respect. You taught us that our scars don't have to define us, the young Krellin said, that our mistakes can be teachers instead of torturers. Mary accepted the crystal, her eyes glistening. You taught yourselves. I just gave you permission. On the shuttle back to Earth, Corey turned to Mary with a tired smile. Think we made a difference? Mary looked at the crystal, catching the light from distant stars. One class at a time. Maybe we did. Maybe that's how you change a 1,000-year-old empire, not with grand declarations, but by showing 12 cubs that learning doesn't have to hurt. Very human of you, Corey teased. Very human indeed, Mary agreed. The end.